and go check the YouTube channel. Make sure everything's working properly over there.
Someone just, oh my God. Oh my God. Hang on. I think I got leaf blowers here. Holy crap.
Leaf blowers, what are the chances? They only run 24/7.
Power tools today? We're gonna do the machines, loud noise, power tools? No, we're gonna mix it on the wheelbarrow. Excellent. Great.
Morning, everybody.
Okay. I'm on the radio. Thank you. Full of surprises.
Yeah, it's funny. My brain is nice and crisp and ready to go because I spent an entire morning jogging through the fumes and noise pollution of leaf blowers that literally don't stop out here in this place. Anyway.
Even in the rain?
Yeah, it does not matter, man. They will leaf blow in the middle of a wildfire.
It's like leaf.
What?
It's like leaf blowing mud. It doesn't work, but hey, someone's paying me to do this. Let's run some gasoline.
I've got them on camera, leaf blowing water, leaf blowing directly into the wind that's blowing the leaves back at them. It just doesn't matter. Nobody's actually looking at what's happening except for me. So
actually, that's a great racket. If you can leaf blow into the wind, it's like urinating into the wind. You can just kind of keep it up forever. The urine comes back and you pee it out again, and you have a perpetual job with leaves. I mean.
So,
and on that note,
yeah. So Jack, you got another really happy topic for us today, right?
Yes, and I assume you're going to play devil and I'll play angel, but I don't know. We seem to switch hats pretty easily here on this stuff. Yeah, this is it's another nature solution to a problem caused by man. This one is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service wanting to help the listed threatened northern spotted owl. So yeah, I don't want to do what I watched the recording of what we did last time, and I can just go off. So I want to kind of moderate that with you, my friend, and go back and forth a bit.
Well, there's so much going on. It's hard to choose which topic to talk about first, but this one is fine with me because there's so many themes that are happening with it that apply to other things that are taking place. And off the top of my head, a few of them are, why is there going to be a part two when it comes to managing humans jump in at the chance to kill and eradicate? What's the follow-up going to be? I'm wondering. I am also wondering about wildlife services. Aren't wildlife services already killing enough wildlife that they're taking care of the chances of any owls starting to flourish? And the population size. I'm guessing that this population size that's out of control would be less than the number of human beings that are in one skyscraper working today in one place. And then, of course, there's succession. There's species succession and humans deciding that an animal can't go to another stage because this is what was happening when we were familiar with it. There's a few things that I'll like to talk about after you give us the details about this owl eradication.
Well, this is a popular form of communication here where we'll kind of go roundabout and all that. I watched the great George Werthner last night give a wonderful presentation to the Sierra Club, and that was kind of to a select audience as opposed to our, I imagine, more general audience we're trying to build here. It was to people who are, members of the Sierra Club and kind of up on issues. And, George can go on for an hour or two, and it's great information with more detail and graphs and charts. And I'm not a biologist. I don't claim to be. I spoke to 2 biologists in the last 24 hours trying to come on this program, both of whom Julie Phillips and Laura Sheraton. And I would love to have them in the conversation here, but both of them dutifully, properly said, I don't know enough about that issue. God bless them. That's what scientists and researchers should do, is be up on the facts. For me, I don't care. Shingles doesn't care. So I will read reports and popular press And I don't, again, I'll always have the caveat that I'm not an expert on this, but I do think there's a place in engaging with experts for common sense. And the owl eradication, which is not a complete extermination. They're not trying to do away with all barred owls to protect the spotted owls. And this is by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, but it's about human management of the wild, a topic you and I hope to return to at every friggin' show, because there's no more important topic. And to your point, yeah, we are, or you're intimating, we're really the overpopulated species in the planet. But as an activist, I say that's not really actionable. There's nothing that I can do about that today other than continue to not have children, I suppose, and talk to people about it. But that's not actionable. What is actionable is there's currently a lawsuit challenging this owl barred, BARRED, which is Strix varia, barred owl eradication program, which would kill, wait for it, 450,000 owls over 30 years ongoing. And to answer your other mention, this would then continue. This would be a population control of these beautiful guys whom everyone loves. And I think this is an easy issue where you can take a successful action. There's a lawsuit brought by two organizations I'll get into who are challenging the insanity of this, challenging the science as well, which is, as you know, my friend, and you can go off on this, and I hope you do, how shaky the science is, how incredibly intelligent people in a tiny little area of one specific science, let's say biology in this case, and then they lose the forest for the trees. Then they go in there and say, we're going to kill 500,000 owls ongoing forever, and that's our solution, which is, to my mind, just insane on the face of it.
I want to acknowledge Jeffrey Phillips. Thank you for the comment. I'm not sure if I know who you are. Tell me about your podcast, and I'd love to come on. Do you know who Jeffrey Phillips is?
I do not. Any relation to Julie Phillips? I assume not.
Jeff, go ahead and keep typing. Any relation to Julie Phillips? Yeah, or, send me your link in the private chat or in the comments, and we'll talk. Yeah, we've reached the point to where we're killing owls now. You know, I thought it was bad enough killing the wolves, killing the coyotes. I mean, most things that are killed for the sake of ranchers and then are labeled wildlife services. Now we're killing owls, which, you know, I feel like I barely see owls, and it's such a rare treat and a wonderful experience. And here we are going to kill owls. But you were talking about humans being smart and jumping to, oh, this is what science says we should do. What about what nature says you should do? And I follow a similar approach to what you said. I actually have an ecology channel in which I expressly state I'm trying to learn, and I'm willing to ask dumb questions publicly so that other people can learn too. Because as a species, we become so disconnected from nature that even things that are common sense, even things that are that you would say later, duh, well, we aren't even thinking about those things, so you don't have a chance to say duh. Someone has to make you say, oh yeah, wait a minute. Yeah, that does make sense. But we're so busy celebrating our intelligence, and that we, of course, being human beings, must be correct, that we haven't thought about the next stages in the damage. And one of those stages in the damage is considering that, hey, maybe this owl is supposed to be succeeding in the way that it's succeeding. Maybe it's not up to us to intervene. You know, yeah, I go out and I pull weeds, and sometimes when I'm out pulling weeds and trying to improve the habitat, I will bring some apples from a tree and stuff like that, because like these animals just have nothing. It's all invasive plants, and it all gets, what was there gets fed to the goats and the livestock. So you basically have wildlife that are starving. And I hear the voices in my head of people saying, oh, well, don't do that. That's not ecologically sound. And I think, yeah, that's true. And as soon as you guys stop destroying their habitat, stop stealing their food, stop stealing their water, and stop trampling their habitat with goats, you can start criticizing what I'm doing. I mean, how many other things could we do before we target these owls, Jack, that need to be done?
As always, we both say a mouthful and it's like, respond. So, there's this one woman named Bev. I won't identify her more than that. I don't know whether she'd want to be identified, but she did me a great service, God, 15 years ago when I was learning about eucalyptus trees. And she said, we just want them, the agencies, and my God, even, Audubon Society and Sierra Club chapters, they vary. They vary. Some do wonderful work and others are a mixed bag. And she said, we just want them to stop killing things. And it was so simple and such beauty in its simplicity. And the way it works is, we're just targeting, oxalis or purple loosestrife, or what's the one in the bay now? They're dumping spraying thousands of gallons of herbicides to kill one Spartina that shouldn't be there, even though it's hybridized. So we have to kill the hybrids. And it's this idea of pure blood. And this goes back to invasion biology, the idea of you and I do talk about this every show, and we should do, maybe next week we'll just do a show if people are interested just on invasion biology, just focus on it. But the idea of a pure gene, a pure species, a pure, wait for it, bloodline, when it goes to humans, which we know better what that leads to and where it's leading to in this country, but that's supplanted, overlaid onto the wild plants and animals as a pure, right way these creatures should be. And we're going to keep them that way. And we're going to kill if we need to. Mass extermination programs, which go on individually. But if you're like us, activists in this field, oh my God, they're killing deer on Catalina Island that were brought in. They're killing house mice that were brought in the 1800s to the Farallon Islands. European cattle, of course, are the ultimate, invasive species, which do harm, which were brought in from Europe. But, those are completely excluded from the non-science labels of native, non-native. Why? Money, 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 money. That's a cash crop, those cows, domesticated and wildly overbred and brutalized. But that's not invasive because we just don't put that label on it. It's this
Right.
Brilliant science is ultimately, when you dig into it, arbitrary and illusory. It's just non-science, as I like to call it.
Right. I remember one of my ecology professors talking about the cane toad problem in Australia that was introduced, and talking about how many there are in the area that is bothering. And I said, yeah, did you look at all the other territories of Australia that have had the habitat replaced with cattle grazing? Have you considered that the numbers of cattle there eclipse the toads? No. And it's amazing because we're so brainwashed that even your ecology professors do not include livestock, anything that was intentionally done by humans, as a part of the problem. And I talk about the habitat destruction that takes place in order to bring in the cattle. Well, could we trace this to the owl issue also? Did we destroy the habitat of something that might have been managing the owl that is now supposedly too successful? We don't apply this rule to ourselves. We've got medicine and we've got these other things that keep our species alive, but it's a problem.
There's a wonderful book called The Nature of Prejudice by Gordon W. Allport, written in, I think, in the 1954, somewhere around there. And this is before I came upon, 30 years later or 20 years later, invasion biology. And he calls it, in psychology, the field is called refencing. So as a white, if I were a white racist man, I would say, well, all black people are inferior, as is now popular in this country to say, publicly again, God help us, although with dog whistles. But then you meet this guy, Gerard, who's brilliant, and he's a black professor of history from Harvard, or, and a president. And you say, well, not him, but all black people are still, inferior. And that's you make the fence to exclude the exception that would disprove your assumption, your false rule. Refencing. And that goes on constantly. And I want to talk to you about this. And it's a tricky subject because I'm all for science. And I feel like this is the Joe Rogan podcast. We wish, with that kind of an audience, where we're, two guys without higher academic degrees talking about stuff And I think of Neil deGrasse Tyson, who says one of the dangers is someone who thinks they know a little and they think they know a lot, and they can be very dangerous. And I think that's absolutely true, Neil. It applies to you when you talk about veganism without knowing anything about it, but that can apply. So again, caveat to what I'm going to say next. I totally am a big fan of science. It's a really important, wonderful tool. Having said that, my point is, I'm leading up to, it is amazing how someone can be brilliant in one area, perhaps a scientific field, and just be an utter freaking moron about some most obvious stuff. Like the Science Times finally proves with a study that water is wet. Now we know it conclusively. Thank you, New York Times PhD scientists, for proving that water is wet, or that owls are part of a complex forest ecosystem well beyond our feeble attempts at understanding it with our big brains and our AI. And then we're going to have 15,000 owls per year killed by professionals. I love that term they use. We're going to hire professionals from different state and federal agencies to go in at night with night scopes and shoot the barred owl, the big bad bully barred owl, 3 Bs, out of the trees. But be careful, don't wing any of the good little spotted owl that's being outcompeted. And of course, the other point I do want to make here, since we're not doing a bullet point, PowerPointy head presentation, is that barred owls are seen as the larger, aggressive, from the east competitors with the listed as threatened. And that's a good thing. It's a whole separate issue that actually did a lot of good to listing the northern spotted owl, the NSO, as a threatened species. But they don't mention that the two of those species are not just competitors, which they are. And the barred owl is an aggressor, and it definitely affects the population numbers of northern spotted in competition. But they're not only competitors, they also mate and make a hybrid owl, which we call the sparred owl, because we must have a label for everything. Is it Kierkegaard's comment? Something to the effect of, when you label me, you negate me. So we put a label on something, and then that's the way it should be. Static again. The challenge of language to limit your thinking when you lock into it and don't follow nature, as you're saying, to observe nature in a constant state of change and wisdom far beyond our own to control, manipulate, and always kill, kill, kill.
Well, how deeply have they looked into the ecological connection of why it's happening, and what's going to stop this from taking place with the next species? Because as you alluded to earlier, we're usually at the root cause of these imbalances, and the only solution we seem to be able to come up with is killing the species that's starting to overtake another species. Well, this is never going to stop as long as we keep causing the balance to never be there. But there's another part.
Which is why this program, by the way, will continue in perpetuity. They don't plan to end this program in 30 years. It's going to be forever, as if we're going to make it to 30 years from now with this kind of mentality.
No, it'll be concrete and cows. It should be a film, but the planet will be concrete and cows.
Well, they did make a film. It's called Soylent Green.
It's called what?
Soylent Green, starring Charlton Heston, 1970 something. Watch it. It's a good vision of the future. It's LA in a heat wave, full of poor people in ragged clothing on the street in such large numbers, they move them out of the way with bulldozers. And then, of course, Soylent Green, as everybody remembers, is what? It's food, or as they said in the Twilight Zone in a different related episode, it's people. We're going to be eating people because we're going to run out of our wonderful beef, because it takes too many resources to put into beef, including regenerative beef, which takes up even more land and more water and creates more methane. I'm sorry, did I just badmouth regenerative ranching, the solution to people who want to keep eating cows?
This Jeffrey guy commenting said that he liked my regenerative grazing video. I'm curious which one you mean, because I did an entire series on it. The number of lies being told by the regenerative grazing group is something else.
Jeffrey, call in and talk about the Dunning-Kruger effect more. That's a great topic. I mean, it's God.
We'll put the call-in link up in a minute.
In a few minutes, yeah. Actually, that's right. We usually do like 9:30ish is when we sort of stop our rants momentarily and have other people join us to fire up the rants again.
We have to have our own therapy session, and what a wonderful world where people will tune in and listen to you complain. I finally learned to try and turn it into some sort of a product instead of just complaining to the wall.
Well, a couple things. One is I think you do a great service. I mean, you and I have found each other, and can I say bitching and moaning with each other? But it's not like it's just us. And in this case, because I'm an activist who always trying to think strategically, in this specific case, this owl killing extermination program, or it's not extermination, but owl killing program hasn't been enacted yet. And it's being challenged by a lawsuit. So my hope is to educate people, and then more people at the specific opportune times can write into the agencies and make a big stink, get to the media, get articles in, as you and I did, meeting over the Point Reyes issue, and actually stop it. It's not just, oh, it's so terrible and doom and gloom, and listen to this and come home depressed or go away depressed with nothing to do with it's actionable. This one is actionable. I hope to choose topics that are actionable for people so they can actually get upset globally, as one should, but then act locally.
If any science types are listening, I really hope I can intrigue some people to talk about species succession, because we had one case that we're talking about here is where the humans caused the imbalance. But then there's something else that takes place, and that's that humans ignore the fact that sometimes species just do succeed each other. And this really struck a chord with me when I went back to school for my natural science degree. And we were thinking about plants, but you have pioneer plants that are the first to arrive on the scene after something destructive has taken place. And they heal the soil, and eventually the existence of those plants causes something else a little bit higher up on the food chain to come in because of them, which leads to something else. And you're talking about centuries of different plants and different animals coming in because of the species that learned to live there before that. And way down the line, you get something like a tree, which takes longer to grow, but will get big and will in itself provide an incredible amount of habitat. But there are some consequences, because that tree is going to shade out some plants that are right next to it. But that's part of the process. And that's what nature does. But the humans will say, especially, and I am going to crap on ranchers again, because they've even tried this in Point Reyes, saying, oh, well, those Douglas firs and cypress trees probably
crapping on them is just a taste of their own medicine. Go right ahead, my friend.
Well, telling the truth about them, which the kids call hating now. Similarly, I'm not saying that this is the case with the barred owl, but who is the human to step in and say, well, you're not allowed to experience this level of success because you weren't at that level of success when we decided to start documenting history. Similar to, these trees should not be growing here because when the Europeans arrived in such and such year, that's not what it looked like. Now, this gets even deeper because I actually, speaking of Julie Phillips and Laura Cunningham, actually provided a counter argument to that, saying that the pollen records do indicate that those trees were there. So it's an excuse for the timber industry and the livestock industry that moves in after the timber industry to continue to kill native plants. Nature's working its ass off to heal. And we are saying, no, you can't heal because that's not the way it was when we showed up and decided that that's exactly how things have to stay forever, with the exception, of course, of us bringing in our commodity animals and paving everything. That part can change.
It's as if large companies want to make money off all this stuff. Is that cynical? And by the way, I'm just noticing there is genomic evidence. I mean, this is the thing in the EIS, environmental impact statement by Fish and Game, as someone taught me to say, rather than Fish and Wildlife, because, it's game because we're going to shoot it. Barred owls lived in the Pacific Northwest. The so-called invasive, in this case, that's tarred as an invasive species, barred owl, lived in the Pacific Northwest, where it's now moving to again for thousands of years. And then it goes on to recently describe genetic and phenotypic difference between western and eastern barred owl populations suggests the western barred owl is not a new arrival. And this is evidence I'm reading from a study here, evidence throwing a wrench into the narrative that barred owls are newcomers and thus can be considered invasive at all. The evidence, of course, is, as I say, is only mentioned and then ignored in the EIS, which proposes the mass killings. So they'll even pay lip service to some contradictory scientific evidence and then ignore it. And again, the thing that's always done in these studies that you and I read all the time, 50, 60, 70 pages of scientific jargon. And I have, biologists, not me, read them and analyze them for me. And they're like, oh, this is just a mishmash of science sounding stuff. And there's contradictions even, well, as there is here with the barred owl. Oh, it's invasive. Well, why is it on the move? Because of deforestation in the South and the Southeast. Actually, a lot of that's wood pellet plants too, another issue I'm learning about. So we do damage to the environment. And then, of course, global heating as well, global cooking, as I like to call it, is pushing owls to move. They're on the move to survive. And then we kill them for doing that and saying they shouldn't be on the move. This is wrong.
That brings us back to the first topic we did, the fire one, where we talked about how heartless people are that say, oh, they have places to go. Well, they have limited places to go. But let's say that this is a case of an animal trying to survive and move to another area. And we're saying, oh, no, you're not supposed to be here. And forget the fact that we took your home away.
So, Skylar, what you just said, I want you to say it in slow motion 14 times with red underlines and yellow highlights. I mean, it's just, that's huge. That for me is a beautiful, simple explanation. We destroy your habitat. You move to survive, which is what animals always do naturally and with an intelligence beyond our own understanding, certainly beyond our own intelligence. And then we kill you for doing that because you shouldn't be there. So I'm just doing what reporters do. I'm repeating what you said because it's just spot on and a really key point. If I could put that into a title of a podcast, I would.
Instead of repeating it, I want to just keep going because I can rant on that forever.
I know, but I also, well, I mean, look,
you really want me to repeat it? Okay.
You do you, but these things bear repeating because they're so damn important. And if we learned nothing from the last election, you have to repeat information for people to grok it.
The most intelligent species sitting on our high horse will declare from far away inside of our fire bunkers that these animals, fire bunkers that were built on the homes of animals that those very same people drove away, say that animals always have somewhere else to go and that they will adapt. And yet when they do try to adapt and they are found in a new area, they will be punished for that. And we will step in and set things right once again. So we set things right by destroying the habitat in one place. And these years in urban sprawl, Jack, I got to tell you, they scarred me, but it made me finally stop and look at the process of humans setting up their own dwellings. The very first thing that's done is to destroy what's there. And then there's so much work put into with these development companies, making sure that no life ever comes back. And then on top of that concrete, the structure is built. And I'm seeing it happen like an atomic blast going across the open space here. It's crazy how fast it's happening. And I can't help but think about how humans are going to keep repopulating. And everyone says that there are too many humans, but people simultaneously say, oh, we have to provide housing for these people. We're the only species that can't live in a place as it was or choose not to. I mean, the number of animals that were getting along in the space that we moved into and destroyed in order for us to live there should make everybody who is proud of us as the superior species take pause, because we have to manipulate the environment to such extremes for our fragile bodies to manage to exist there. And maybe not all of it's necessary. We've gotten even softer than what we actually physically are. But you got to have, your running water, and you have to have your toilet, and you have to have your refrigerator, and you have to have your heater, and you have to have your air conditioner, and you have to have your pesticide people coming every single week to make sure that nothing even tiny that resembles life is anywhere near your home. And
kill nature, push it back, get it away.
We actually don't have ants here anymore. They actually have managed to cause there not to be ants. When I moved here, I used to have to put the hummingbird moats out to keep the ants from getting into the hummingbird feeders. It's not a problem anymore. They have actually successfully gotten rid of ants.
How many people, I wish we were a national call-in show. We'll build it up, I suppose. But we remember used to drive your car at night, and on the headlights would be all sorts of, not that I'm proud of it, but dead
Oh, right,
moths. You
right.
killed insects that were, I mean, I haven't had that in a long time.
No,
There's
but
fewer
I wonder
insects.
why. I wonder why owls and birds and other things are having a hard time surviving.
Right.
Surely owls don't need insects, or even the next food source above that one.
So
Let me
go.
my old brain. Let me get this one out.
Yeah, I know.
I'm wearing one of my shark shirts. On my shark channel, my first slogan was turning research into film because people don't read research papers. And I was trying to do good by helping people understand what's happening in the shark world. I've changed that slogan to the problem with scientists is that they're people. Science can be well-intentioned, but at the end of the day, humans are what humans are. They're driven by money and they're driven by their careers, and the integrity just isn't there anymore. And look no further than Shark Week to see the worst examples of scientists that are out there being celebrated on the biggest platform. I mean, these people lie blatantly to the camera and nobody knows any different. Now, do you think that that's not true with terrestrial animals, with the livestock industry pulling the strings? Of course, lies are being told there too.
So I'm going to reel it in a little bit, my friend, my cynical friend. There are good scientists, and there are a few willing to speak out. Yeah, it's important to say that, because what I see in politics now is, oh, the politicians are all corrupt, and I'm like, huh? Jamie Raskin, is he all corrupt? Bernie Sanders, is he all corrupt? Liz Cheney, conservative Republican, is she all corrupt? No, and it's important to remember that, because that's how the populists and the demagogues tear down the system. Or for that matter, I'm not an anti-science ranter. Oh, don't trust the scientists. What do they know? Because then you're just in this world of, alternative facts versus in the EIS by the Fish and Wildlife Service, there is the fact that owls are on the move because of human damage.
It's scary. It's scary because you're right. Of course, you don't want to dismiss science in general because science is important, but the chances of someone having what was once standing on their integrity to not be corrupted, I just feel like that is going away because the humans see their own existences measured by their bank accounts. Now, I work with scientists. You know that I work with scientists. I work with them in terrestrial and in aquatic fields, and there are good ones out there. Their voices are just kind of being buried.
Well, that's up to us, buddy. You got to give them a voice. Like the great George Werthner last night, who's taught me so much about rangeland issues and wildfire. I mean, he's not working for a university currently. And the other thing is, too, is good people. We are social creatures. So I don't want to name names, but just a really wonderful man. I really like sense of humor. UC Davis professor, retired now. And I was speaking to him about, not about barred owls, but about cutting down trees in order to prevent wildfire. And he has U.S. Forest Service friends who they all say the same thing. We need to thin forests everywhere. We need to open up the forests everywhere. Like, oh my God. And this is a good man who should know better. And he admits he's not up on the issue, but he listens to his friends, and we're affected by this group think, which comes from the Forest Service, which is, basically a proxy for the timber industry. And I guess I just want to, you and I will be more voices reminding people again, don't destroy nature. We can't manage nature. We shouldn't try to manage nature. And my mantra is, we consider ourselves the most intelligent species, Homo sapiens, on the planet. And I make the argument we are the least intelligent species because we're the only ones fouling our own ecosystem.
Right. And I adopted that saying like 20 years ago with the shark thing. And but I'm getting to a point. I've changed it to, I'm not going to deny that we're intelligent, but we don't behave intelligently. We do not. We are choosing not to use that intelligence in a constructive manner. You mentioned George Werthner. George Werthner told me a story because I was going back to school, and he's like, "Well, don't talk about cattle." And he says that amongst his colleagues, they were like, "No, you can't criticize the cattle industry. Do not do a study about the effects of cattle, or you will get ostracized." And I made a mistake while I was applying to interactive biology grad school, San Francisco State. I had an interview with a guy who mentioned that one of his projects, every time that starts to make progress, they unleash livestock on it and it gets destroyed. And I foolishly looked at that as a way in. I was like, oh man, I really want to get into that and talk about that. All of a sudden, I was no longer a candidate. So,
well, so the trick is, first become a millionaire, so you're independently wealthy, and then you don't say anything, go to a school, get a master's and a PhD in ecology, biology, one of the sciences, evolutionary biology. Play the game, don't talk about cattle, and then you come out and you say you're a Harvard graduate with a PhD, and then you can rip into the industry. That's my long-term plan. There's my solution. Jeffrey Phillips says Discovery Channel is a propaganda channel. I like that. I don't watch enough Discovery anymore because I decided I wanted to be more activist than a watcher of nature documentaries. But I'd love to hear what Jeffrey has to say about that.
Oh, Jeffrey's right. It's so bad. It's so bad. I only watch it when I have the energy to do a parody of one of the ridiculous things they've done. Are you ready to take a call from Jeffrey, or do you want to?
Yeah, just let me. Once we switch, I just want to see if there's anything else I wanted to say about the barred owls issue. I guess I want to mention two things. So there's a lawsuit challenging, in case people are just joining us, is a barred owl, what I call eradication program, to kill 450,000 barred owls in the West. Because they're supposedly pushing out northern spotted owls, as opposed to the real reason that barred owls are on the move because of human damage to ecosystems and climate change. There's a lawsuit by Animal Wellness Action and another group, the Center for a Humane Economy, filed a lawsuit in October, I think it was, challenging this nonsense. And I just want to say one quote from the U.S. Forest Service, who are the bad actors, the killers in this case. Quote, as wildlife professionals, we approached this issue carefully and did not come to this decision to kill 500,000 owls lightly, said Oregon State Supervisor, I don't even want to name names, it doesn't matter, they're all just in the industry, said in announcing the decision in August. Spotted owls are at a crossroads, and we need to manage, here it is, we need to manage both barred owls and habitat to save them. So first of all, we need to manage everything because humans are there to manage. And this isn't, God forbid, we just set aside half of the wild and let it be, right? And this is the one that got me. This isn't about choosing one owl over the other, when in fact, it's about choosing one owl over another. It's exactly that. It's saying the barred owl shouldn't be there. The northern spotted owl should be. And it does have a threatened listing with the ESA, Environmental Security Act, Endangered Species Act, which is a good thing. But now it's been weaponized where once we give one animal a listing, it's a license now for these agencies to kill other animals who threaten the listed one. And all of it's our construct, the human construct of that one's endangered and that one's the aggressor and shouldn't be. It's imprinting our competitor-only viewpoint of humanity onto the animal kingdoms as well as the plant kingdoms as well.
I had one of those duh moments while you were talking there where they were talking about
duh or aha?
Both.
Okay.
Some sort of a weird mixture. The barred owl pushing the spotted owl out of its habitat. Are they considering the millions of additional acres of forests that are being chopped down as possibly also pushing the spotted owl out of habitat?
Well, they make note of it and then ignore it and don't take it into their conclusion about an action. Oh yeah, they notice it. So there you go. We make mention of it. But exactly, that is the correct. Anyone watching his skywards is rubbing his face, covering up his face in despair, rubbing his eyes with his hands. Perfect. That could be the logo for this show. That two guys going like this. Oh my God!
I mean, if we wouldn't stop destroying the habitat for everything, maybe there'd be some space for all of them.
We're killing trees to save trees from wildfire. We're killing owls to save some owls from other owls. We're killing
which both need trees.
Say again.
Which both need trees.
We both need trees. Yeah, and of course, the tragedy is we humans need forests. They're the greatest evolutionarily brilliant design for carbon sequestration and oxygen production, and we're killing them to burn them as a so-called clean energy biofuel, which is a whole nother show.
The other thing that they do with these trees, because they're constantly chopping down perfectly good trees here and leaf blowing the shit out of the leaves, and then they bring in those chopped up trees and put them on the ground where the leaves once were. I'm like, that's a better use of a tree.
So I want to make the point here, because you and I can both dig a deep pit of despair where we often spend time as activists. It's inevitable. You have to look at this stuff to learn. But I want people to watch this show and just have an understanding. I want them to be deeply cynical when they hear of any program that's killing a plant or an animal to save other plants and animals. If there's people need to get educated about that the population can affect the media and tell the story and affect other people, and then we push in the politicians, which ultimately can change, corporate policies of killing to make money. So that's why this isn't just doom and gloom. This is an optimistic thing. We do have power, but we have to be involved.
I think it's important to mention, you mentioned understanding. I think it's important for humans to take a step back from their egos and realize you don't always have to understand it for it to be necessary. Like nature is very complicated. Studying ecology and how this species over here was connected to this species all the way over here. And we messed that up by killing something that we don't even see with our eyes. We're so detached from nature at this point. Can you just acknowledge that you're sitting inside, sheltered from nature, and then saying, oh, yeah, we should go and kill this thing and that thing. Maybe you don't know. Maybe you don't know. And I want to talk about the Farallon Islands really quick, because that thing.
Okay, hold it. I just want to reinforce what you said about our disconnection from nature, and then you go to the Farallons, but go out and walk in nature and learn to love it again, because we have lots of intelligence. We don't have much wisdom. We have lots of information and mental knowledge, but less and less emotional connection, affection for animals, just to observe them and be with them. People, hunters want to connect with nature, and I accept that they do, but there are ways to do that without actually killing what little is left. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, I want to make the big transition here. It's about love. It's about loving wild animals and wildness and things we don't understand. And that is a heart connection, as they say here in California. And without that, and a lot more of that, we're doomed. And it's, of course, the thing that artificial intelligence is literally incapable of feeling.
It's kind of impossible for you to talk without sending me down a whole nother rant, because I had a wonderful weekend in the Pinole Hills with coyotes, and experiencing them is getting increasingly rare. And I was recording and I was talking about how this is the exciting part. I spotted some way far off, and I tried to figure out which direction they were going to go and if I could cut them off in order to see them pass in front of me. And I'm out there with the wildlife. I'm experiencing the wildlife. I'm trying to understand how to track the wildlife. That's the fun part. Why do you have to pull the trigger at the end and bring it all to an end? If you want to go connect with nature, there is a version of doing it that doesn't end in killing nature.
That's an update of the 70s t-shirt. Travel to exotic, distant lands. Meet exciting, unusual animals.
Kill them.
And kill them. Exactly. Right. It's like, and again, there was a time when there was just a few million people in an area and you could get away with that. It's not going to decimate the species. And of course, you'd eat or use the animal. Well, those times are long gone. I don't care what your heritage is. 350 or whatever, 340 million Americans can't all go running around hunting anymore to provide our own food. And of course, we don't even need to. It's just not, as the buzzword is, sustainable. So do we want to, we're at 9:45 here. Do we want to bring anybody in or on? Is there someone?
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Let me throw the link up. Hey, if you're not familiar, when you push that link, it's going to ask you to give permission to your camera and your microphone on your device. And you don't have to show us your face. Your microphone, of course, is the most important part. So I always don't type the words. This is the link there. This is the link to call in.
And if people want to email you separately or make a donation to you, Skylar, right. What is the name? Is it Watching Humans or another title that you use?
I think if you go to shameofpointraise.org/donate, that's probably the best one.
shameofpointraise.org/donate for Skyward Thomas to support his work here on this platform. And for me, it's treespiritproject.com/donate. Same idea. So you can support us if you like what you're hearing. Yeah, that all helps. So thanks very much. And please spread the word. We're trying to get more people to watch the show and talk about this rather than talk about DC politics in a way where you feel enraged and can't participate and can't help. Skylar and I are both want to help and want to engage more people in helping, which we can do.
We have Jeffrey Phillips in the waiting room. I'm going to let him in, but I got this one more thing burning in me. The Farallon Islands.
Yeah.
A mouse was introduced there by humans. Okay. And so that's a problem. And they want to dump poison all over the island. That, of course, will go into the ocean in order to solve that. What if an owl that lives on the West Coast had flown over the Farallon Islands and dropped a mouse there? Then is it acceptable because it was a part of natural history?
Fantastic question. And that's an issue. We should, you know what? We can do a show on the Farallons. I know a lot about that. I'm with a group that talks about it. It's Mus musculus, a house mouse that was introduced off. Usually the best guess is Russian hunting ships in the 1800s. The mouse has been there, expanded populations, thousands of them on the island for 150 years. But now suddenly it's an emergency and we must kill them all. And in that case, unlike with owls, the invasion biologist mentality is we not need to kill every single mouse. And we're going to do it by dropping buckets of poison pellets and blanket the island. So that's a fun topic for a future rant for our new show called The Rant Farm.
And with that, Jeffrey Phillips, you are on.
How's it going, guys? How's my sound?
Sound is good. Your light's a little hot, buddy, but that's okay. There you go.
I'll step back a little.
Yeah.
So awesome show, guys.
Thank you.
Just a little, I guess, a little background on me. My mom was a hippie back in the day. Had me at home in Santa Cruz on a hippie commune. No drugs, anything like that. She raised me McDougal vegetarian. In the 90s, I was a big vegan, straight edge animal rights activist. I eventually ended up in Hollywood as a musician and did the whole excess drugs and alcohol thing and became a carnist. And so I spent my time in Hollywood being in a pretty big band and doing all the Hollywood stuff. Kind of, missing my activist roots. The band I was in, we were getting videos sent of like troops in the Iraq war, like listening to our music while blowing people up. And so I was kind of disillusioned with the whole music thing. So I left Hollywood and now I went vegan again, obviously. Had very much a lot of guilt over that through that whole session. But now I just do I do a weekly podcast that's about natural law and veganism and all the stuff you guys talk about. It's actually called Vegan Group Therapy. So it's funny that you said we all need group therapy up here because that's the name of my show. And we meet up like once a week and go for 3 or 4 hours, and it's pretty fun. I've done 50 episodes, and we watched. Okay, so Skylar, we watched your video. It was like it wasn't a part of a series, but it would go black and white sometimes, and it was just you talking about regenerative grazing and how it's just completely BS. And which is I do a lot of debates. I debate farmers and like keto
they come on your show,
activists, influencers, and stuff like that. And so I used a lot of what you said in that video. I've used against farmers. Like there's this farmer named Garland Farms who's a big anti-vegan, just kind of the worst of the worst. And
vegans are the worst. Vegans are those peaceniks who don't want to kill anything. I mean, they're clearly against society. It's like Jesus. It's just nuts.
Yeah, they're like trying to do less harm and stuff. Why would you want to do that?
It's good. It's so Christian.
We said this last time, Jack. So I'll be bad cop and you be good cop. I don't even want this to be. I don't want this to be labeled or considered vegan just because people close their ears, but it is important for people to understand that as environmentalists, it became undeniable that you should be vegan because the animal agriculture industry is absolutely wiping out everything that you're trying to save. So if you're going to pretend that that's good while saying save this, it's just not possible without a serious oh God, is it too rude for me to say mental illness? Someone else
Yes,
say
it is.
something else.
Yes, it is, bad cop. I'll be the good cop, which is people are conditioned. I wasn't. I mean, God, Jeffrey, I want to talk to you about your, as we say in California, your journey through drugs and music and art and veganism and carnism and back to veganism. I was 50s and a meat eater, and I saw Cowspiracy, which was a documentary about the environmental effects of eating meat, beef specifically. That it was like, oh no, I can't stand up on stage as I was doing tree spirit talks about don't cut down trees and value trees globally as well as locally and eat meat without being an absolute hypocrite. And then once I went there, my woman at the time, really, who was ahead of me with being heart-centered and caring about how animals are treated, got me to watch, movies like Dominion and Earthlings. And then I was willing to look, because I was already, okay, I need to stop meat. Then I could look at how meat is created in our modern society. And then it was like, oh my God, this is just so upsetting. No wonder I didn't want to watch it, because as everybody knows, like, don't make me watch that, because then I'll have to quit eating it because I know it's so wrong. So we just do, the willful ignorance thing.
Like you guys were mentioning earlier, super smart people, but when it comes to carnism, their IQ goes out the window, and they don't want to talk about the stuff at all. They just want to, and even you'll get smart people that will admit, oh yeah, it's morally wrong to eat animals, but I just don't care. I just don't care. They're missing the care part, which is something that's kind of been brainwashed into us over generations, is to not care about, people over the border or animals in Central California. We're all California guys, I guess, here. That's kind of cool. It was, Oregon, right? Oregon, California.
I'll give you a friggin' clue, buddy. Where do you think I'm from?
So Sludge says public universities are run by socialist Democrats. Well, okay. Socialists,
sure.
Huh?
We've known that for a while. So it's funny, when I was in Santa Cruz this last
Sledge, come on, talk with us, buddy. I'd love to have another an opposing point of view, and we'll discuss. We can be friendly. I will be friendly anyway. So come on. I mean, I'm not sure where you're going with this. Some of my best friends are socialist Democrats, and I have friends who are not. So come on and discuss. Really, I welcome it.
Hey, it definitely, look, there's something called rangeland science. Okay. And people go to school at UC Davis, Sonoma State, etc., and they're learning about rangeland science, which is a science talking about how to make the land better for your commodity crops and for your commodity animals. So it's a different type of science. And yes, you can have a higher level of education, and you can have all kinds of degrees and use them to manipulate and not tell the truth. I mean, but you also shouldn't get rid of education, because that's how we end up where we are right now, an entire nation of a really uneducated people doing really, really dumb things, voting in really dumb people.
Oh, and you know what? I do want to read Sledge's comment, which is it's a great comment. So it's all these, concluding from our discussion here. So it's all these highly educated people, university graduates, that have led us to these problems. And his point is, they're a problem. And I would say, so there's validity in that. Just because someone is highly educated doesn't mean they're not an idiot. However, very important area of gray, it doesn't mean because somebody is highly educated that they're an idiot. So meaning you can have every variation. People are monumentally pliable and variable. You can have a Harvard, PhD and be a moron, and you can be completely uneducated, as my grandmother was, an immigrant from the Ukraine, escaping the Tsar in 1917, came to America, and a great practical street smarts and intelligence. So they're just independent variables, is the point. You can't conclude conclusively all one thing about a people.
I think I would rather people get educated, and after you have the information, make a decision.
Well, yeah, I agree. And if they say that, well, Jack, where's your biology degree? And so that's why I don't ever claim. I mean, I see myself, my fantasy would be like the Stephen Colbert, who brings people on and has lively discussions and bring experts on and let them say, but then ask them common sense questions. Will all the owls, 450,000 owls killed, guaranteed or very surely protect northern spotted owls? They'll tell me, no, it won't. Have you considered other options like that? Hybrid owls is nature's evolutionarily designed solution, and that it shouldn't be a stasis of only spotted owls need to be protected at all costs. And say, yes, we've considered that, and then we discount it. And just hearing that information will inform the average person who says, that smells pretty fishy, so to speak.
I want to thank Jeffrey for calling in. We've got 4 minutes left, so we'll have you call in the future or send me the link to participate in your show, Vegan Therapy Group. Thanks
Vegan
again,
group
Jeffrey.
therapy. Vegan group therapy.
Vegan group therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I get angry pretty fast, and I feel like when a comment like Sledges is on the screen, I feel like they hear one thing out of everything you said and use it as an opportunity to misquote and say that, oh, well, there you go. You're saying that educated people are the source of the problem. Did I actually say that? Or did I say that scientists aren't incorruptible?
No, you didn't say that. And he makes his own extrapolation, as do I, as do all of us. But anyway, I love engaging with people. So I'm thrilled I had a 4-hour discussion with a Proud Boy a few months back, which was a fascinating experience. And you can, if you want to, depending on how you're wiring and your patience and your time, you can find common ground always and connect with people. I do want to believe and act that way, that underneath, even if we're at opposite sides of an issue, I think there are many people inside the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service who actually care very much about animals, even though they can be doing a monstrous program because they can't speak up, because they lose their jobs, because they need to pay their rent or their mortgage or whatever. But the bad cop would be, those are monstrous people. How dare they? Fire them, and they're horrible people. Understood, legitimate point of view. Mine is, I want to understand in the optimistic belief that we can find common ground and all work together to save more wild animals than if we don't work together.
I remember one of the ways that I was attracted to marine life, and sadly enough, coming from the Midwest, it was a family vacation, and we went to SeaWorld. And it was imprinted on my brain that the way to get close to these animals was to work at one of these parks as a marine biologist. And now I think that that's a very terrible way to spend your marine biology degree. But you see, originally their intentions were inspired by the fact that they did love the animal and wanted to do some sort of work with the animal. But ultimately you get sucked into something that wasn't really positive. But how many years of school debt are you going to just abandon? How many years of working toward getting that position are you just going to abandon because maybe you have an epiphany at some point that you're like not actually doing these animals a favor?
It reminds me of diet doctors who get a medical degree and then realize, my God, they've taught me nothing about nutrition, and then they go on to do alternative modalities. But they have that foundation of science, and makes them actually more effective communicators with the status quo, the AMA.
I'm glad you said that, because I can show that I have a big problem with the Democratic administration. Also, Biden I just saw the news that he wants to cover with medical insurance diet pills for losing weight. But what should we really be doing in this country? Changing your diets, not taking a pill to counter the shitty diet that you're engaging in.
Right. Yep. More of the system. And I have the same. I mean, that's why, oh God, we don't have time to go down 4 more rabbit holes on our rant farm here. So another time. Thanks as always, Skylar.
Sledge says that he's here. Do you want to,
please. I mean, at least do a minute or two over. If everyone who doesn't want to hear Sledge, leave, but please don't. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Okay. So Sledge, I should be able to see you in the waiting room if you're here. Let me put the link up again.
Video or just voice, whatever you prefer, sir. Either way.
I don't actually see you in the waiting room, though. Click the link that I just put up
and see what happens. if you dare. So remember now, Skylar, you're bad cop. I'm good cop. And we're both unarmed. I want to add that up front.
I'll sit back and watch you two.
Okay.
All right.
You're going to sit on your hands, I imagine.
I don't know what you meant by you're here. You're not
okay.
here.
You know what? It's 10:01. We're after the witching hour here. If we could just pop on, but let's Sledge, if you're willing, call in next time. We're going to be here next Tuesday at 9 o'clock on another, but always interrelated topic. Maybe we'll do the Farallons, Skylar. We'll talk about the next topic. And to all our listeners, the thousands of you that have typed in what you'd like us to talk about next week. Although it's always going to be about nature and humans. And for Skylar again, watchinghumans.org/donate to support this show.
No, I got to streamline. You know, I'm all over the place. I've got like five websites.
And there you go, Sledges. Thank you for understanding, willing to engage. Does next week work for you, sir? And it's shameofpointraised.org/donate.
If you go to the homepage, you'll be able to see the donate button. I've got a shark website. I've got the ecology website. So yeah, I tried putting them all under one umbrella. Because Sledge is having trouble getting in, I just want for future listeners, when I watch what happens right here, I will put this link up and you'll see it on your desktop or mobile device. If you click on that, it should offer you the opportunity to give access to your microphone. But Sledge, I still don't see you in the waiting room, but maybe practice that for next time if you want to voice your thoughts live instead of typing them. Jack, thank you for being here. Thanks for bringing another important topic up. Interestingly enough, CAL FIRE is going to be destroying more trees at one of the places you're fighting to save. I wonder if spotted owls and barred owls both would like that not to happen.
Yes, they would. As you were saying, owls need forests. Forests need owls. Other animals, hundreds of other animals are, interconnected in a delicate, beautiful web of life of which we humans are a part if we choose to accept that we are and walk out there, quietly and enjoy them and come alive ourselves. How's that for good cop? And for me, it's treespiritproject.com. Grateful to you, Skylar, for the platform. And look forward to next Tuesday.
And I know I waited till the end of the show, but I want to thank people who actually joined the channel, my YouTube channel, this channel that you're watching right now. And thank you for your support for becoming members of the channel. treespiritproject.com or org?
Com. It's both, but com. Sure. Yeah, I don't pretend to be.
Oh, the buffalo comment. Yep.
Sledge. We got to talk. You know what? Another show. Oh my God. You get us both going. Regenerative ranching. We haven't done a show on regenerative ranching, and Sledge, you've got to participate in that one. We love the comment, and Skylar, I'm jumping on Skylar, who wants to jump in on this also.
Well, it's a huge topic. The buffalo thing is interesting because it goes back to the argument we're having earlier about some people saying that it happened and some didn't, because while some people were saying, hey, buffalo were here back in the day, therefore cattle should be allowed to do it. That by itself could be a topic to argue. But then you had other people come in and say, no, bison were not actually in California. So you see how many problems you run into.
Anyway, I like that he says, yes, you must find common ground. So he and I agree. We have the common ground of agreeing we should try to find common ground and discuss from there, because then you'll actually have an exchange. I've done arguments with people where you just, including with my girlfriend, where you're head to head going at each other. And it's like, we're not making any progress here. This is just, for me anyway, painful and frustrating. I'm good for venting for about a minute or two. And then I just it's futile and upsetting. So anyway, next week, we should keep this to a limited so that you and I can go another 3 or 4 hours. Let's just keep it to an hour-ish. Yes, sir?
Yep.
Okay. Again, thank you, Sledge. Thank you, Skylar. And